What is up, YouTube? It is Evan coming to you with another video. So a lot of people have been talking about how a lot of staffers are coming out about how Biden was hiding his cognitive decline, the aides were hiding his decline. Nothing was being hidden. Let's be honest about that. I think we could all tell that Biden was there, but he wasn't there. You feel me? The lights were on, but no one's home. And they're making a big deal about it, right? This has been making the media circles, people are acting outraged, when to me, and this may be a hot take for a lot of conservatives, it's really just not that big of an issue compared to everything else going on right now. There's so much more that we need to be focused on, like this bill, this big beautiful bill getting passed in the Senate. No one seems to be talking about it. Look, even me, I should be covering the Senate, but you know what? I'm gonna cover the Senate right after this, but I need to get people off of this topic. It's not gonna do any good. We've already knew that Biden was in a mental decline. Why is it that we're suddenly acting outraged about this now? Because we got confirmation? We were right? Yeah, we knew we were right. It shouldn't make a difference. We should be beyond that, and I'm gonna see what Fox has to say about it. I'm gonna give my comments, but before we do that, I would really appreciate it if you could like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. It really helps out the channel, helps it grow. I've been noticing some growth since a few people have been liking, been commenting. I really appreciate everyone that came to watch the No More Conjugal Visits video. I'm gonna do more about that in the future, but without further ado, let's get into it.
We're going to bring every single person that was involved in this cover-up in front of Congress and ask them all the questions that the American people deserve to have answers for.
That is House Oversight Chair James Comer demanding that former President Biden's doctor and other top advisors either turn over documents or testify on the details of what was really going on with his physical and mental condition while he was running the country. The investigation ramping up in the wake of a new book, Original Sin, which details what many view as calculated, years-long effort to conceal the president's decline in the run-up to the 2024 election. Joining me now, the book's co-author, Axios national political correspondent Alex Thompson. Good to have you with us today.
Great to be here.
All right, we got to start with the elephant in the room, the media coverage of this. You recently won an award from the White House Correspondents Association for, quote, aggressive reporting on Biden and for providing, quote, important insight into the inner workings of the Biden White House. In accepting the award, you acknowledged we missed some of this. There's more that could have been done. But everyday Americans who are watching the kinds of things like we have on the screen now, they'll say, we weren't in Washington, we're not at the White House, we're not covering this every day. We could see this decline in real time. Why couldn't most of the Washington press corps?
Well, I would say first, there's a big difference between what you're seeing on the screen there and then what was going on behind the scenes by the inner circle of the Biden White House to try to shield that part of Joe Biden. But,
you know, I've always thought that, like, right before Biden has to go out in public or he's going to do something that requires a little bit more of the cognitive faculties on high alert, I genuinely think they're doping him up. I think they're shooting him up with adrenaline, shooting him up with uppers, shooting him up with basically amphetamines to get him to function at what would be considered an acceptable parameter. Like, you look at those debates, right? Like the debate with Trump, he was messing up in those too. But even then, that is a night and day difference from what you typically see with Biden. Like, gaffes aren't even gaffes really, because gaffes imply that it's a departure from what is normally expected of you as far as speaking. Those weren't gaffes. That was just normal Biden. When he would step on those debate stages, you could see he was shot up with all types of stuff to keep him alert. And even then, he was still messing up.
for people that in the country that are frustrated with the media coverage, I don't blame them because they were saying there's probably more here. And we should have not, it's because the media definitely talked about his age and did show those clips. But I do think we didn't probe enough into what was actually going on behind the scenes. And that's what we really try to do in this book.
Well, fair to say, though, that those who did publicly question what we were seeing and try to push for more answers, they were often belittled or kind of, condescended to about why they would even ask those questions.
I mean, I covered this aggressively back since 2021 and especially through 2023 and 2024. And the book says that, at times I was even frustrated that and I felt a little bit on the outs with, some of my colleagues, not all. I think there are a lot of people that were really trying to cover this story, and people in the White House were lying and not telling the truth and obscuring it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. That's why I made the comments at the speech. I think, this is a good moment for just like reflecting on why exactly we missed some of the details that we finally got in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what this is really about, right? It's not about the truth necessarily. It's about vindicating people who were trying to cover this in the past. And I guess, there's some honor, there's some merit to that. But my thing is that there's an ever ongoing battle for eyeballs to get people's attention onto a particular subject. And this is just not among what should be high priority for conservatives, for Republicans, for Americans even, really. Unless you have like a hardcore Biden supporter who's going to read this book and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that I supported him. There really is just no functionality to this other than to pat ourselves on the back and say we were right and we are finally vindicated.
So some of those who were pressing at the time in real time for more answers, I want to play a little bit of the responses they were getting from Biden's inner circle.
I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. The right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
I don't know if I would call saying what every other sentence is probing. What'd you say, Jack? You gotta speak up, Jack.
The president is absolutely sharp, fit, on top of his game. People can see that for themselves. You don't have to take my word for it. People can see that for themselves.
People felt like they saw something different when they were looking for themselves. All of those quotations were in 2024. So based on having read your book, what you reported, were those people lying at the time? This idea that they couldn't keep up with President Biden?
See, it's like simple questions like this that really irritate the shit out of me. They try to Barney us, right? Hold our hand through the process. Yeah, that was wrong, right? Yeah. They were clearly lying, right? They were lying, right? I know they were lying, but I'm going to ask you because I have a low intelligence base, apparently. Like, come on. Have a little bit more respect for us as viewers. I think we all know Biden was in a sharp decline, but I get it. It's a press tour for this book. It's vindicating reporters who were done wrong. They were doing God's work at the time while Biden was in office, but we got Trump in office now. There are more pressing issues, and I don't like how much this story has resurfaced in the media. If anything, it helps out Democrats, really, because no matter how much we can prove that they lied about Biden, that does little to nothing to move the needle for our present day policy.
And that he was exceptionally sharp.
They weren't telling the truth. And I think the book really conclusively shows what was going behind the scenes. And throughout 2023 and 2024, there were steps taken to increasingly shield Joe Biden, not just from the public, but from members of his own cabinet, members of his own senior staff. And one White House official who left in 2024 told us that they left in part because they were not comfortable with how they were trying to shield the extent of the decline of Joe Biden that people saw on that debate stage. I think the book really shows it was not the first time that Joe Biden had acted like that. You can also listen to the tapes from the Robert Hur investigation. I think there's you can sort of hear debate Biden. And there were increasingly frantic efforts to make sure that the public did not see debate Biden. While the public did see that he was aging, I think the debate was a shock to millions of Americans because of the extent of it.
Well, and you mentioned in the book, you talked to a number of cabinet secretaries. I thought this was extremely illuminating and a little bit frightening, because some of them told you they didn't think he could handle that 2 a.m. middle of the night phone call. I mean, he's the commander in chief of the nuclear codes. One of them talked about seeing him in person the last year and was shocked by he seemed disoriented. His mouth was hanging open. He seemed out of it. Did those cabinet officials express any remorse? I mean, did they not have an obligation to say to the American people, we don't think this guy can be the president, much less run for 4 more years?
I mean, there was definitely a lot of self-reflection about what, if anything, they should have done differently. I think there was a feeling, like a lot of members of the Democratic Party, that were seeing this or saw moments of him seeming out of it, that going public was not going to change his mind and was only going to help Donald Trump.
The thing about Biden not running in the end of it is that he, till the day he dies, can tell his Democrat colleagues, oh, well, it would have been different had I ran. I want to say that was even a conversation he had with Obama. It's like, oh, I should have did it. I wouldn't have lost. You know, I took him down once. I could do it again, Jack. I could do it again, fat. Oh, dude. As much as I dislike him, he's like the most quotable person ever for all the wrong reasons. There's still more to this video, but that's where I'm going to cut it, because honestly, I feel like it's beating a dead horse, and I would be hypocritical to just continue going on with this. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. We need to stop talking about Biden. It's not excusing what they did. It's realizing that we have a finite amount of media coverage that we can do, and it needs to be centered around what's going to advance our interests, our goals as a country. And this just ain't it. So yeah, that is the video, guys. I appreciate you coming to watch. If you enjoyed this, you found it informative, entertaining, or some other third thing, I would really appreciate it if you could like, comment, subscribe. If you'd like to share with a friend, I'd really appreciate it. If not, hey man, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm Evan, and I'm out. Peace.